If you manage and lead SDR teams or aspire to do so, this episode's for you. I'm sat with the CEO of one of, if not the global leader in sales development as a service. Did you used to be crap at sales?
Yes, and I thought I was good because I was the only one, and then he came in and just completely wiped the floor with me. And that was my aha moment that I needed to make a shift.
What does the recruitment process look like? You mentioned the 5 C's.
The 5 C's is curiosity, coachability, courage, confidence, consistency. When I saw that report that you put out, I wasn't shocked. Now the numbers are shocking, but I wasn't shocked because this is my world. Coaching is everything when it comes to the success of an AE and SDRs. So for 10 years before I got into Alleyoop, I was in the recruitment business, recruited over 8,000 sales reps, not just SDRs, but as more account executives, VPs of sales, CROs, heads of sales. And I think over the last 10 years I've been here, I think we're at almost approaching 2,500 to 3,000 SDRs who have come through Alleyoop, and we call those individuals now Alleyoop alumni. It's kind of epic to see, their career path. The head of sales development at ZoomInfo, the head of new business at Oracle and SAP, the head of new accounts at Ambition was an SDR first.
Where do you think an SDR should focus their time and resource in that early stage of their career? What should a manager make sure they spend their time on?
I mean, that's what I think is going to separate the good versus the great.
Give us the pitch for Alleyoop.
And then I punch him in the face with 3 to 4 bullet points that resonate with.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the I Used to Be Crap at Sales podcast. I'm your host, Mark Akers, the co-founder and head of sales here at MySalesCoach. We called the podcast that because it's true, and all of our guests say the same. And today I'm joined by Gabe Lullo, the CEO of Alleyoop, a global leader in sales development as a service, an agency that partners with fast-growing SaaS and tech companies around the world to help with top-of-funnel lead generation. Above all of that, it's one of my favorite names for a business. Alleyoop, for British listeners who may not know, is defined as a high pass caught by a leaping teammate as they dunk the ball before landing, which is the ultimate assist in basketball. And that's why they call themselves Alleyoop, because that is exactly what they do, the ultimate assist. In terms of this episode, this is what it's about. It's all about SDRs. I'm sat with the CEO of one of, if not the global leader in sales development as a service. He's got 100 plus active SDRs on the books. And I want to unpick everything he's learned when it comes to recruitment, onboarding, training, coaching, and scaling SDR teams. If you manage and lead SDR teams or aspire to do so, this episode's for you. Gabe, welcome to the I Used to Be Crap at Sales podcast. How are you feeling?
I'm doing great, Mark. I'm a huge fan of yours. We've known each other for years and I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited about what you're doing and I love this podcast, by the way. So we're going to have some fun.
Thank you. Yes, no, definitely. I'm looking forward to it, Gabe. We always kick off with a yes/no question. Did you used to be crap at sales?
Yes, but the reason why I was is because I thought I wasn't. And I love to talk more about that.
I think that is a very common answer, right? When people have that false perception of themselves and their own natural ability, that beginner's luck almost. How crap are we talking, Gabe? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being excellent, how crap are we talking?
I mean, it's all perspective, right? The reason for my answer is because I literally thought I was great. I was told when I was younger, I was raised by a very, outgoing, extroverted Italian family. So I knew how to yap. I knew how to talk my entire life. And I was told, Gabe, you should be a lawyer, right? That was my advice by everyone in my family. But at 11 years old, I sold T-shirts for a fundraiser to save my community aquarium in my town. And I sold 11 T-shirts to my uncle. And they were really bad, ugly, disgusting T-shirts with a big whale on it. I convinced him to buy 11 of the same T-shirts for $25. So I figured I was good at sales. And I thought because I can communicate, I was good. But that was my problem. So I was bad because I just wouldn't stop talking and I just snowballed people with information. And in an SDR role, that is the exact opposite of what you want to do. So I was bad for a while and I had some amazing leaders that got me on track. And that's why I was able to push through.
Is there a penny drop moment for you when you realized that, wow, I am just crap at sales?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I was doing okay in my first internship. I was working in New York City making cold calls in the hundreds a day manually. This is like 2001, 2002. So, we didn't have software technology to make phone calls or anything like that. And I was doing okay. But then all of a sudden, another intern was hired after me, and we sat in this bullpen, and he started just crushing me. And I thought I was good because I was the only one. I was, doing what I was supposed to be doing. And then he came in and just completely, wiped the floor with me. And that was my aha moment that I needed to make a shift fast, or I wasn't out of a job pretty quickly.
What was he doing in particular that sort of made you feel that way?
He was asking the right questions, and he was using silence and this tonality that I was completely not doing, right? I was going in there doing 15 jumping jacks, super outgoing, super high strung, super enthusiastic, really excitable, and which is good, right? That's a good attitude. But at the end of the day, I was over, talking, I was interrupting, I was not listening. All I was thinking was about how do I, answer this question or give them a ton of value. And I wasn't asking any questions, right? And I was in zero control of the conversation. The prospect owned all of the control. What he was doing was the exact opposite. He was asking thought-provoking questions. He was very calm. He was very confident. He had all the right things when it came to, being an expert, but not having to sound like one. And he just literally got them, the prospects, to convince themselves to take the appointment by just asking really thought-provoking questions. And it just was super natural.
And was this you self-identifying, this guy's doing something I'm not, these are all the things, or did someone sort of sit you down and really show you? Because we can be blind to that sometimes.
No, we had a mentor, and we were all there to, drive appointments for his team. He was a very successful financial advisor, and he, it was pretty simple. It was math. Just math. They say, hey, Gabe, what you're doing is just not working right now. And we really like what you're doing. We really like your, charisma. We really like your attitude. You check all the right boxes for us, but the results just aren't where they need to be. And then he said, pointed, this is what we're seeing here. What I would advise is just, friend this person up and listen to what they're doing. And I just got fanatical about, game tape, right? Just listening to calls over and over, and asked him, took him out for a beer. And I said, hey man, can I just listen to what you're doing? Like, it's obviously working. And I just friended him up. And that's really was the start of me getting just fanatical about every single thing that I say and still do.
Was that easy for you to be so open in the sense of, okay, look, I'm clearly not as good as I thought I was. You're clearly better than me. I need to study you, listen to your calls. And the reason I ask that is I've seen a lot of SDRs come in, and even though there's no barrier to entry, you don't have to have a degree to get an SDR job. You don't even have to have experience for many companies. So there's no barrier to entry, but they have these incredible egos because, like what you spoke about, and I was the same, used to think we were really good. So it can be really hard to be humbled and realize you're not. And I see SDRs go one of two ways. They either reject that and keep going and ultimately fail, or they open up and embrace it. And my question to you again, I suppose, in a long-winded way, is was that easy for you to almost be humbled and open up to someone else and admit you need help?
21-year-old Gabe, no. It was impossible almost for me. 43-year-old Gabe, yeah, it's a lot different now. And, I always say there's 5 C's to successful SDRs. And when we're hiring, when we're interviewing, when we're managing, when we're coaching, we look for those 5 C's, and we talk about that a lot. But one of those C's is coachability. So when we're attracting an SDR who's done this for a while, who has had success, who looks great on paper, and like, wow, phenomenal. But we check that and we inspect what we expect before we even hire them and say, hey, we see you have a ton of success. You did great on your coaching calls, your role plays, because we do those in our interview process. And I say, but my biggest concern is, are you coachable? Because are you going to be willing to be coached? And by the way, the person who's going to be coaching you is actually 10 years younger than you. Are you going to be okay with that too? And so like asking those types of questions, for me, it was very challenging and very difficult. But I also then looked at my bank account. I looked at my rent, and I said, okay, if I don't do this, right, I'm going to have to be bartending my entire life, because that was what my other job. So I was working in the internship during the day and bartending at night so I can have enough money to pay rent in Manhattan. is very expensive. So I said, you know what, I need this to work. My mom is a huge, advisor of mine, and she said, Gabe, you just got to humble yourself. Like, you can do this. You're good, but you can be great, and you just need to humble yourself and take this advice. And so, yeah, coachability for me now and over the years has been the number one thing to get better.
Let's talk about that. One of the things I want to start with is the recruitment process. So, yeah, as I understand it, you've got over 100 SDRs on the books at Alleyoop, but how many SDRs have you had across the years, right? You've obviously had two stints with Alleyoop now, but what does the recruitment process look like? You mentioned the 5 C's. Let's start there. What are those 5 C's? We know one's coachable. What are the others?
Yeah, so for 10 years before I got into Alleyoop, I was in the recruitment business and, recruited over 8,000 sales reps for over a decade. And that was not just SDRs, but as more account executives, VPs of sales, CROs, heads of sales. And then when we came to Alleyoop, my role is head of people operations, which essentially was the recruiting arm for the company. And I think over the last 10 years I've been here, and you're right, there's been two runs here with my career, but I think we're at like almost approaching like 2,500 to 3,000 SDRs who have come through Alleyoop, and we call those individuals now Alleyoop alumni. And it's kind of epic to see, their career path, literally heads of the most successful SaaS and tech and data companies running their SDR functions and sales functions. Several of them have started their job at Alleyoop, working here, making, cold calls for the first time, and now running multi-billion-dollar brands. So it's been awesome to see that Alleyoop alumni over the years. The 5 C's I have it always written down right here, and it's curiosity. So you got to be curious, ask the right questions to what we were talking about before, right? Coachability, like we discussed. Courage. You got to be fearless. An SDR calling an executive at a Fortune 1000 company, you got to have some balls, man. You have to have a courageous attitude. Confidence, which is my favorite thing out of all of them, because that tonality and that directness and that boldness comes through. And I think that's where belief comes from, is confidence. And then the last one, which is, again, it's about work ethic. It's consistency. You can't have ebbs and flows and be expecting a hitting quote every month. So consistency is where it's at. Curiosity, coachability, courage, confidence, and consistency.
Here's what's interesting. I've recruited nowhere, like not even in the same league as the number of SDRs that you have, but I always look for curiosity, coachable, confidence, consistency. I would say the courage, it'd be great to understand a little bit around the difference between courage and confidence and how you would define that, because I feel like I've got a little test for each of those things. And I would say that I'm looking for maybe the same thing with courage and confidence. But tell me, when you're sat with an SDR in an interview, you're getting the very best version of that person, right? That they're putting on almost a show because this is the very best of them. How do you test for those 5 things? Hey, sales leaders, do you want a cost-effective way to develop your team's skills and help them smash their quotas? MySalesCoach offers team memberships for just £20 per month per individual plus VAT. This will give your reps access to small group tactical coaching sessions, daily power hours, and exclusive events, all led by world-class sales coaches. With over 25 group sessions to choose from monthly, there's something for every role. We have sessions for SDRs all the way up to CROs. Empower your team to perform to their best. Visit mysalescoach.com to get started. The link is in the description.
Some of it is obviously experience, looking at a resume, asking, what they did there and how they did it. When you're a recruiter, you always have to have your glass half empty attitude, which is not natural for me. So when I was learning from really amazing recruiters, I'm like, oh, this is the greatest candidate in the history of the world. And I had my sales hat on the entire time. My mentors in the recruiting space is, I don't really care why you think he's great. I want to know all the red flags, all the concerns of why you think he would be bad. You need to tell me the cons. And I'm like, dude, you're so negative. Like, why are you always so negative? But he taught me how to be a phenomenal recruiter when turning that on. So it's always about being, devil's advocate, right? In that regard. So challenging people in the interview process, I always ask people this. I say, what did you do there? But more importantly, why did you leave to go to the next role? And that gives me a lot more answers than what they did there successfully and why they went to the next role. It shows a lot and exposes a lot that you need to hear to find out a lot of those C's. So that's one thing that we do. Another is we do what we call Gabe's Gauntlet at the end. So they actually still to this day as CEO, they still have to go through me in a live role play in order to get the job. So we have 4 steps in the interview process. One of them is a video. The other 2 are live sessions or interviews. And the last one ends with me. And they have to do a role play. We give them all the guides and trainings and scripts and tools, but it's like an audition to be an actor, right? It's like if you were on Saturday Night Live and you wanted to impress Lorne Michaels, to get the role and to be the next, SNL actor, it's the same thing. And that's how we look at it, because cold calling is live. Writing emails, doing LinkedIn, that's all pre-recorded tape, right? That's like making a movie. That gets edited, that gets refined, that gets reviewed 1,000 times before it gets sent. On a cold call, it's Saturday Night Live. It is a live experience. And that's what we like to put people into to see what they're made of before we make a final decision.
I know you're tasting the way it's intended. You wouldn't expect a company that's hired that many SDRs to have such a stringent process that ends with the CEO. You'd almost imagine it's kind of, let's give it a go. Let's give them a go. Because when you're hiring en masse, you can afford to get a couple wrong. I appreciate that's slightly different when the role is to book meetings for your customers. But on the whole, if you're recruiting one SDR, 2 SDRs, you can't really get that wrong. But if you're recruiting several, you can maybe take a bit of a punt on somebody. So it's great to hear that even as you've grown and scaled, the recruitment process is there and you haven't sort of moved away from that. And I suppose really it has to be like that because they're your product.
You would think that if you're hiring SDRs for a software company, because the software is your product, right? A data company, the data is your product. A professional service or a widget, like the widget is your product. Listen, I don't have warehouses. I don't have inventory. We don't ship anything. I have 0 patents. We don't have proprietary information. SDRs is literally our product. So just as fanatical as Tim Cook at Apple is about what an iPhone physically can do and what's in the iPhone to make it best in class, that is the same attitude we bring to finding best in class SDRs. So it's not a matter of, winging it or, the letting some through. Like there's no room for that. Like the recruitment function is literally our product line. That is what makes your product. Well, the recruitment process is our assembly line, if you will, to finalize our best in class product.
There'll be lots of people listening to this that interview SDRs. Give me at least one of your favorite questions to ask on an interview.
I mean, I really start off with the elevator pitch, right? Because SDR's goal is to be masters at an elevator pitch. So I say very specifically, this is how I do it. I say, when we start the interview, I say, tell me, based on the research and all the things you've heard, learned, and seen about Alleyoop, tell me specifically and be as specific as possible on why you think you would make a massive impact in our ecosystem. And I stop. And that's what I ask every single person. I've been doing it for a decade. And the reason why I do it every time is because, one, it gives me a very quick barometer because I've literally heard tens of thousands of answers. So very quickly, I can know if this person has it or not just on that one question. And it's not really the question as much as I've heard the result of that same question so many times that it helps me give you a quick measuring stick. But on the flip side, it shows me that have they researched us? Do they give a shit? Are they asking the right questions to themselves to find out that information? Do they know themselves? Are they self-aware? And do they know why they would be able to bring value here? Are they confident? And do they think they would make an impact? And if so, what does that look like? Do they have an ego or do they have like cockiness? I don't want that, right? So it's a self-awareness thing that gives us an opportunity. So there's a lot to unpack in that question. And it also lets me know if they can pitch people and how good they can go. I've seen the scenario where they go for 30 minutes, got a 30-minute session. I asked that one question. I've seen someone literally spend 25 minutes answering that. And they just go off on a rails. And I mean, that just tells me right there, they can't control themselves, right? So there's a lot there that we like to determine from that one question.
I love that. And as I was thinking of that question, I was thinking that would show you that confidence, that would show you that courage. That would show you, well, and if you wanted to, it would show you if they're coachable and if they're curious, because I would be thinking, do they ask for feedback afterwards? And here's what I've seen some reps do, and I just think, I'm onto a winner here, is they'd say, because I ask a similar question, they'll say, can I ask how I did? Can you give me some feedback? I give them the feedback, and then they say, can I try again? And that's when you know you're onto a winner.
For sure.
What are some of the red flags where you think, despite all of this, my spider sense is going off, we're not going to hire this person?
A pet peeve of mine is their curiosity. When I'm in the interview process, I tell them the agenda. So listen, I'm going to have a series of questions for you. At the top of the call, I'm going to have a series of questions for you. And then we're going to reserve questions for you to ask us. And then we're going to get into a role play at the end. And that's what I do. And that's how we break it up. Now, I go through my questions and I do my interview. And then I say, hey, okay, what questions do you have for us? And when they say, nope, all good, got all my questions answered, Olivia, our recruiter, did a great job, and they don't ask me any questions, I literally will not hire them, period, no matter how they did. And so here's the deal. Like, we know we're not just interviewing. This is not a one-way relationship. They're interviewing us just as much as I'm interviewing them. And we're very clear about that. And I think it allows for our retention rates to be so high and our culture to be so positive because, we have this, very dynamic relationship. But at the end of the day, if they're not willing to ask us thought-provoking, I mean, you're talking to the CEO of a company, right? You're in front of them right now and you have zero questions. Or maybe they ask like really transactional questions like, yeah, so what does my PTO policy look like? I've gotten that as the first and only question in an interview to the CEO in the fourth interview. I'm like, really? So that is very important to me. That's truly my pet peeve. Everyone knows it. If you can't come to the table with phenomenally good questions in that setting, to me, it's you don't care.
It's almost like I'm listening to someone repeat back to me how I conduct interviews. Just
that's why we're friends. That's why I like you so much, man. This is like listen, what we do is hard, right? And so if you can survive to get to where you're at and to me, I think we have a lot in common. You know what I mean? It's funny. I've seen some of your podcasts and it's interesting because, these are people I don't know, but they say the same things I do. I'm like, man, where do we get who is this person who figured all this out and told us, but no one told us that everyone else knows too? It's pretty interesting.
It is interesting, but it's even that line of, I do start most interviews like this. You're interviewing me just as much as I'm interviewing you, ask questions. And you're right, at the end, when no questions, I think the funniest one I've had is, how long's my lunch hour? And it's like an hour.
Well, this is my favorite. Like, I know I'm probably offending some people who've probably asked me this question, but what's with the growth thing? Like, listen, everyone's like, yeah, I'm just looking for growth. And my response to that is, okay, what does growth look like to you? And then they look deer in the headlights, right? So their first and only question is, I want growth. I'm looking for growth. I need growth. I think growth. I'm looking for companies that have growth. I left this company because they don't have growth. And I'm like, great, what does growth look like for you? Because by the way, there's a significant amount of growth here, but I don't know what that looks like. And they don't even know what it looks like. So think about it. If you're looking for something, don't you want to know what it is when you asked what it specifically is you're looking for? I mean, so that to me is just a weird one. Like, of course you want growth. Of course you want more money. Of course you want upward mobility. Of course you want promotions. Of course, like, yes, that's, building a career, and we have that in spades. But when I hear that, that's what they ask. And then I ask, what specifically do you mean? And what are you looking for? Nothing.
It is a frustration, particularly when you've on the fourth stage as well. Let's talk about when they're successful then. What does onboarding look like at Alleyoop for your SDRs? What does that process look like?
Yeah, so we actually have someone in charge of that. What's interesting and the way we are set up, it's pretty unique because we have our own brand and we have our own team and we have our own SDRs and we have our own product and offering. So it's really a great testing bed for all of our new hires to live on the Alleyoop. We call it the home team. Very basketball themed. So if they sit on the home team for a period of time and they get mentored and trained by literally the best SDR we've hired in many, many, many years. He's incredible. And he manages the home team. and they go through that training. They sit on our campaign. They are in live, conversations promoting our company, and they really get to cut the teeth, and we get to inspect and evaluate, and they get comfortable. And then once we feel like they're knighted to move on to the client, then at that point we would start assigning client campaigns to them.
It must be hard as well, though, to transfer someone from the home team if they're obviously driving business. It must be a difficult balancing act. I can't not ask, because you mentioned the best SDR you've ever had. Tell me about this SDR. Tell me more about them.
He's a grandfather of 9 kids. So think about that. He's got more gray hair than me. I mean, he is somebody who has had an amazing amount of experience, was a stockbroker, ran banks. Like, he's an extremely successful guy. And you may think, an SDR is early 20s, starting their career, trying to get in their foot in. He's done all of it, but he loves the idea of mentoring. He loves the SDR role. He doesn't like having the pressure and the ebbs and flows of closing big contracts and chasing revenue on, anymore. And he's just someone that really appreciates the role as much as I do. And he's very, very good and very systematic. And I call him like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of Alleyoop, because he's that Jedi master, and everyone really appreciates his coaching and abilities. And it's just great to have him on the team.
I bet. Well, I hope every time you see him, you start the conversation with hello there. In terms of his day-to-day activity, how much of his time would you say he spends coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I would say 80 to 90% of his day is, doing exactly that. We're doing constant one-on-ones. We're doing constant call camps. We have a company huddle multiple times a week where we actually showcase calls across the entire company. So we think, like I said, game tape is call camp to us. And, Steve Richard actually was someone that helped us a long time ago create Call Camp. And it's an amazing way to listen to people who've done it. And we do good, bad, and ugly. And we don't do the first people who, new SDRs, because it gets nerve wracking for your call to be reviewed in front of the whole company. But also at the end of the day, we create a culture where people want to actually do that, because they're yearning for feedback, and they want to get better, and they are excited about it. And so that's what he's managing on a daily basis.
So 80 to 90% of his time coaching is amazing, a real luxury for those SDRs. You might have seen, I know I sent it to you yesterday, I don't know if you'd have had time to have read it, but we just released this critical piece of research on the state of coaching, and we had over 1,600 sales professionals take part. There was quite a bit that come out that was really not surprising, but disappointing. And it was things like 38% of sales professionals said they rarely get coached. Ironically, 90% of sales leaders said they coached monthly. Here's the thing, 29% of reps that got coaching said what they did was poor. So we've got a crazy amount of reps either not getting coaching or getting poor coaching. 39% saying it was too generic, 34% saying it was repetitive, 29% saying it lacked practical, actionable advice. And that full state of the SDR survey was with Aircall. It's available on our website if anyone wants to download it. But here's the question that I really want to get to is most SDRs don't get anywhere near that level of coaching. They get a weekly one-to-one at best with their managers. It's a KPI, dashboard, sit down. So here's my question to you, Gabe, in a roundabout way. The level of coaching that you invest into your SDRs, what impact does that have on their development? And how do you feel about the SDRs that don't get that and their opportunities for being successful in the role?
Coaching is everything when it comes to the success of an AE and SDRs. And when I saw that report that you put out, I wasn't shocked. Now, the numbers are shocking, but I wasn't shocked because this is my world. And so when companies, come to me and say, Gabe, we need help, it's usually because they have an SDR function in place and it's not working and it's broken and they're expecting results from it that is just not occurring. And the main function and the reason is the enablement. And I put coaching in the enablement function because, again, anyone could recruit a good SDR. Like, we can go source it. There's 850,000 profiles on LinkedIn right now with people that say SDR title. So it's a huge pool of people. So you can go hire an SDR, you could pay them. Then what? So the enablement piece is the hardest part, and that involves coaching in a massive way. Again, it's like a product company or a software company. If you're developing SaaS and software, I guarantee you have a QA department testing and QAing every single piece of code that your team is developing before you release it, or everything breaks and then no one wants to be a customer of yours. So the amount of money you're investing into QA for your product is no different than how you should invest in your sales teams when it comes to enabling them and training them and coaching them. But the problem is most companies hire 2 to 5 SDRs and that's about it, right? And so to manage that and to encourage that and to motivate that and to inspire and comp, and then of course train and enable that, that's where it all starts to break. And it's just they don't know how to do it, or they don't know how to spend money on it, or they don't know where to find it. And that's a big problem for SDR teams. And when they come here, they get that because we invest more than anything when it comes to enablement.
I imagine that is a big pull for you in the interview process. Top SDRs will have other companies trying to hire them, and they'll be promising them things that perhaps you can't. Right, coming here as an SDR within 6 months will make you an AE, as an example. Obviously, that doesn't quite suit your business model, but here's what you can promise them is if you come here, we're going to make you a better salesperson. It's not just about tech that's going to make you faster, more effective, send more emails, make more dials. We're going to make you better at your career. This is what it looks like. We've got the Obi-Wan in the home team that's going to look after you. Here's what they're going to bring to the table. These are the reps that we've brought on. These are the success stories. And I think that must allow you to attract talent that perhaps you wouldn't be able to if you couldn't offer that. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100% fair. I mean, the head of named accounts at Gong was an SDR here first. The head of sales development at ZoomInfo was an SDR here first. The head of new business at Oracle and SAP was an SDR here first. The head of new accounts at Ambition was an SDR here first. I mean, our job is to train and develop these individuals who take this role seriously and then go out and become highly successful in other roles. And it all starts with that training and providing them the basics and fundamentals to be good.
I love that. And it's great to have so many success stories there. And I love the thought of, the alumni from Alleyoop. You should get everyone together one day for a big party.
Yeah.
In terms of onboarding, I feel like I know the answer now, but I want to check. What would you say for someone that's listening that onboards SDRs in their function, and I hear the phrase trying to reduce the time to productivity, right? They want to get them as productive as possible, as quickly as possible. What would you say is the biggest hack for having the best onboarding process and getting them productive quickly?
I'm a big believer of jumping in the deep end, right? And not saying figure out how to swim without a lifeguard on board, but I am saying, jumping in the deep end and actually, doing a lot of on the job training with, again, a manager and someone there to coach and train. I see a lot of companies, hire SDRs and then it's classroom training for like a month and a half. And it's all product training. A lot of clients come to us and say, how do we get your SDRs to know our product as well as we do? The answer is we don't want them to, right? So it's like we don't want to be experts in the product. Now, do we become fanatically good at knowing the product? Yes. But the role of the SDR is to not be the expert. It's to sell the expert, right? And so we like to have our team in the onboarding process start making calls right away, getting them swimming right away. And then of course, fostering them through the process to be, ready and capable to be assigned to a client. But I think there's just too much classroom training happening in the beginning stages. And then they end up, not wanting to do the role, and then it's just a waste of time, energy, and money at that point.
So what I'm hearing there is just start picking up the phone, start having conversations, and you know what? It's okay because we've got Obi-Wan there. 80 to 90% of his time, he's listening to calls, he's playing it back, he's highlighting the moments of magic, he's identifying the moments you could improve, we're role playing. We know that we've hired you, we know you're coachable, we know you're curious, we know that you've got the confidence and the courage to give this a go. It's now about making sure that you're coached and you can do it consistently. So I can see why that really works for you. And very similar, I should say, actually, picking up on not being an expert in the product. Again, when I've had a product before and I've hired SDRs and even AEs, but if we talk about SDRs for a second, I don't let them touch the product. And I learned that the hard way. I used to have, so there was a bloke called Alan. He was responsible for the product. And when an SDR joined, I'd say, right, you're going to spend a couple of hours with Alan. And I would take the piss. I would say, you'll enjoy that. That'd be fun, knowing it was boring because, you're going to learn about it. But I sort of just felt that's what you did. And here's what I know. I joined one once. I thought, I just sort of joined in because I wondered where the SDR was. I needed them for a team meeting. So I sort of went into the room before COVID, this was, and I just heard Alan being Alan. And he was doing the right thing, but he was just talking about the product, very monotone, very factual, very specific, very sort of matter of fact. This is the product, this is what it does, this is the feature, this is what it does, this is how it works. And I had this sort of penny drop moment of, we can't let Alan anywhere near the SDRs because that is going into their calls. And then I had this moment where I thought, Christ, I send them to the marketing team. Christ, I send them to meet the CTO and the devs as well. And then I realized that that's what happens in sales. You get people, when they go and sit with product and engineering, chief technology officers, marketing, they start to put their pitch together that is either filled with fancy marketing jargon and words and phrases or technical words and phrases. And that's not the language of the customer. And we totally changed what we did from onboarding in the sense of, for the first couple of months, you didn't speak to anyone else. It was about listening to calls. It was about making calls. It was about being coached. It was about learning about your prospect, why they go to work, their problems, their language. And they didn't know anything. And here's what also happened. On cold calls, if you ever got asked a question, does it integrate with Salesforce, as an example? The question, the response wasn't, yes, it does, and it does X, Y, Z, and single sign-on and reporting. It wasn't any of that anymore. It was, what are you looking for it to achieve? And they started to ask questions because they didn't know the answer. So, that way in which you described onboarding really resonates with a lot of what I've done in the past and is good to hear. As an SDR, there's loads to learn, right? There's ICP in the market, messaging, cold calling, email, social selling. You've also got to be organized. You've got to be a fantastic researcher, a creative writer, confident on camera, as well as motivated, disciplined, able to deal with monotony, etc. Where do you think an SDR should focus their time and resource in that early stage of their career? What should a manager make sure they spend their time on out of all those things? Looking to unlock your team's full potential? At MySalesCoach, we pair individuals and teams with expert coaches for personalized one-to-one and group coaching sessions. Our platform makes booking seamless, it tracks progress, and delivers real results. Studies show expert coaching increases win rates by 30% and revenue by 7%. Whether you're an individual or a team leader, we provide coaching that sticks and delivers. Visit mysalescoach.com using the link in the bio and start achieving your goals today.
Objection handling on cold calls. I mean, that's what I think is going to separate the good versus the great SDRs. There's a lot you put there, right? And I just want you to think about that for a second. Most people don't realize all of that, right? And they say, oh, why are we not hitting quota? Well, you're asking them to do a billion things, right? Right now, we're seeing cold calling coming back. It's never left us. But over the last few years, there's a lot of controversy with AI and email and all of these different tools and technologies. And we're seeing cold calling still reign as king. Now, we break it up into 10, 80, 10. 10% of the people you talk to, no matter what, we call them red apples. They're going to say yes because it's just the stars have aligned when you call them. Everything is right. You could be the worst SDR in the world and they'll still say yes to you. You could have started your first call, right? And your first day, you've seen those before. Your first call on your first day and they get the meeting. How did that happen? It was a red apple, okay? Now, 10% are going to be rotten apples, meaning they are negative Nancy people and they'll never say yes to anyone. You can call them up and they will say no, right? It's like the best of the best can go ahead and call them up and they're still a no. Now, here's the interesting part. 80% are green apples. So what do you do with a green apple? You put it on the windowsill. Now, if you keep it on there too long, it goes rotten. If you keep it on there just the right time with just the right amount of sun, it turns red. And that's what we call the objection handling segment. So if you can, we figured it out. There's only 10 objections you'll ever deal with as an SDR, no matter what your product you're selling or service you're selling. There's only 10. So if you know what they're going to say before they say it, and you know how to respond to what they're going to say immediately, then that's really where you can tip the scale in your favor and start having the success that you're hoping for. Figure that out first, and then add everything else you just said into your day-to-day, and then you'll have success.
What a soundbite. We'll definitely clip that up. I've not heard that analogy before, but I love that.
Thanks.
I'm with you. There's 10 or so objections. I think I've referenced that in problem prospecting, like the objections that you might get. What would you say is the most difficult objection to overcome for an SDR, and how do you coach them to overcome that?
There's one that's just not interested. And it's like the brush off. It's almost like a pre-objection. It's not even like a real objection. Now, we count it as one, but they're not giving you anything, right? It's like one of them would be like, hey, I'm really busy right now. We just launched a new initiative and I'm, in the middle of an implementation. Okay, we call that the business timing objection. You got a lot there that you can go off of to turn it around. Or if it's, I appreciate it right now, but I'm just not the right person. It's my boss. They're the one that makes the final decisions on this. I'm not your guy. Okay, well, that's not the direct decision maker, but they're an influencer. They're a champion. There's a lot there that you can go off of. But if they just say, yeah, not interested. Okay, now what? Right? So you have to get, again, good at asking those questions to find out more, because it's not the real objection. It's a bullshit objection. You got to peel back the onion to find out what the real objection is. So almost like the fake objections are the hardest one to deal with because there's just really not much there to go off of.
So what should they do?
Ask the right question. I act confused. So if someone says to me, I'm just not interested, I'm like, that's interesting. I don't hear that very often. I mean, we just did a great implementation with your competitor, Salesforce, and they're loving what we're doing. And we're getting a lot of momentum right now with what we're bringing to the market. May I ask, what specifically is your hesitation? I turned the word interested into hesitation, right? And I leverage the fact that we're working with their competitor, and that's fear of loss and credibility. And I act confused and surprised and taken back. On purpose, I'm acting, but I do that as a way of like, kind of confused on why you would say that I haven't heard that one yet, right? So like making them feel bad for even saying it, make them feel a little stupid for throwing it down when you have competitors, but then coming back at it and asking, what's the hesitation, and relabeling the word, right, to your standards, and then getting them talking. Then you got the real objection probably coming at you right next.
I love that. There is so much going on there, like you say. There's the social proof, there's the fear of missing out, there's the reframing of the word, there's the acting and feeling like you're surprised, making them feel like they're alone. There's so much going on there. I'd love to almost now go through every objection and get your take. Here's what I love about it the most.
I'll send you an invoice. We'll do it.
Here's what I love about it though, right? I would have answered that probably slightly differently, but there's no right or wrong. It's just different ways. And I think your way is excellent. I love it.
That's super important when it comes to training. And I know you're the master trainer, right? So it's like we always say before we train, there is no right or wrong way of doing this. There's an effective or ineffective way. So it's what's effective is what matters. Like I will never open up my opener, right, and pique the interest. We call them a peak, but a lot of people call them an opener. I will never say, hey, Mark, this is Gabe over at Alleyoop. How are you today? I would never do that. To me, it sounds fake and I'm inauthentic. I just can't do it. It comes across ineffective and fake, and I sound like a salesperson. And the whole goal of being a salesperson, a good one, is to not sound like a salesperson, right? So to me, that sounds bad. Now, we had a guy who was phenomenal on our sales floor, and he did that every time. He used the "How are you" opener at every call. He was incredible, but he could do it because he really cared. He was super authentic, and his tonality just came through where it was a genuine conversation that he's starting. And I could never get to do it. Now, what's right or what's wrong? Well, it's like what's effective, what's working for you. And so, yeah, I think that's super important.
It's such a great way of phrasing it. I've got the same. I feel like I keep agreeing with you. I've got the same thoughts. We had Sarah Brazier on the podcast, who you've referenced Gong. She used to work there. Obviously, notable for a lot of people.
Her manager used to work here. That's pretty crazy.
And I remember seeing a long time ago on LinkedIn, that was her go-to call opener. And I just thought, that's stupid. That can't work. But the thing is, it worked for her. And I think, like you mentioned there, like tonality is important, etc. And the way I look at it, and this isn't my original analogy, I'm ripping off Ricky Gervais, so to speak. But what I really like about it is, sales isn't maths or science. It's, maths is right or wrong. Science is right or wrong. And what I talk about, let's just say in 1,000 years' time, all the maths book and science books have been destroyed. All the sales books and theory and all the experts have been destroyed and gone away. It'd all come back, but the maths and science books would be exactly the same because it's right or wrong. But all the sales books would be totally different. It'd be a different perception, different upbringing, different background, social references, etc. And that's the important thing. And that's where I get really hung up when people say my way is the right way. It's like, well, it's not. It's the way that works for you.
Exactly. And I'm really happy you said Ricky Gervais, because this is the analogy I use all the time. And I think it really hits home for people because everyone can relate. It's the comedians, right? The whole point of a comedian, their job is to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to make you laugh. The whole point of an SDR is one thing and one thing only, is to create a lead. Okay. So the end result is very simple. It's to make you laugh. Now, look at all the comedians out there. Jerry Seinfeld doesn't swear at all. Right. And yet Ricky Gervais is extremely vulgar. Now, their approach to comedy is completely polar opposites. But at the end of the day, and I've seen both of them live, if you go to those shows, you will be laughing your ass off the entire time. And so if you look at comedy, right, and you look at comedians, everyone has a different way of making people laugh. But at the end of the day, if they're laughing, it's working and you're good at what you do. Kevin Hart is different than Adam Sandler. Again, seeing them live. I love comedy. I'm a huge fan. So they're very different, but they laugh at the end of the day. And here's the other flip side of the analogy. All of what they're saying is already written down. It's a script. If you go and watch them twice the next day as they're on tour, it's the exact same thing you saw. I saw Adam Sandler live. He came to my town. And then just a few weeks ago, his special, the same one, was on Netflix. And we watched him like, it's exactly the same thing, word for word, right? So it's predetermined. It's a script. So when people start freaking out, I don't like scripts. Well, guess what? It's not about the script. It's about your performance of the script. That's the real expertise.
Absolutely. I've never understood people that are anti-scripts. And the thing is, when people hear scripts, it's because they picture someone sort of just staring and reading. It's not about that.
Right.
It's about
performance.
Exactly. And like you say, when you watch these comedians, you wouldn't feel like it was rehearsed. They kind of almost, this has just happened. Let me turn that into a joke. It's not. It's so well thought out and rehearsed, and they know it works. Let's move on to managers of SDRs. And there'll be a lot of people listening to this that are managers of SDRs or aspiring. What traits do you need to have to be an effective SDR manager?
Amazing active listening skills. Incredible understanding of people dynamics and personality types and why people do the things that they do. Extremely patient and understanding and empathetic, and bold, and ability to what I like to say, the compliment sandwich, right? You got to kiss someone, you got to kick them, and then you got to kiss them again. So your ability to deliver training directly without offending or pissing them off so they can actually take it and move it into action. And then being really organized with inspecting what you expect. Don't just assume it's getting done. Circle back and make sure that it is, and give people the right track to run on. I would say those are the top 5 or 6 points that I would look at.
Out of all of those, I think the one that's the hardest is active listening. Just as a human.
For sure. Usually I start the hard ones first, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right.
So how can someone work on their active listening skills? What can they do?
Hit mute when you're actually on a call, right? Just like literally mute yourself. Be okay with silence. I tell people, I say, listen, you got to be okay with silence. Don't respond. Count 1 to 2 in your head before you actually open your mouth, and just start listening to your own silence. Meditate, just be alone and just put music on or something, like in your personal life. Just be okay with not hearing noise. Again, it's like volleyball. It's like pickleball or table tennis, right? The ball's in their court. It's not in your court yet. You can't go into their court and hit the ball. It's against the rules. You have to wait till the ball comes back, and you got to be ready for it, and you got to prepare for it when it's coming back. You got to just listen, and you got to just shut up and be okay with not talking. Silence is just as much of a communicator as the words are. So that's what I would advise people to do.
I think that's such an interesting point about silence being really important in terms of communicating, because there are times when you just have to go quiet. You're hearing something, and that silence can speak volumes. When you obviously would have seen a lot of SDR managers in your time. What's the biggest mistake you see SDR managers making?
See, I don't like the SDR managers that are just those dictators, right? You go do it. You got to do this. You got to do that. This is how you have to do it. I like getting in the trenches, the SDR managers who, have walked the walk and talk the talk. And so it's let's go do it. Let me show you how to do it. Let me make the next call for you. Tap me in. I'll do this one on your behalf. I'll even say your name, right? And then I'll do it. And then you listen to how I handle that. And it's literally getting in the trenches, putting a virtual headlock around the person you're training and doing it together. One, it's going to really resonate with them. And secondarily, they're going to respect the hell out of you and run through walls for you when times get tough. Hey man, it's this, we have 2 days left of the month. I need you to kick ass for me right now. Our team is, second place. We need to hit first place here. Can you just give me all you got today? They'll run through walls for you because they know that you're there throughout that process and training them that way.
I love that. And like you say, get in the trenches and even just, I'll do this call for you. I'll use your name. It's being a leader, right? It's not being a manager. Should the manager of an SDR team ever be someone in a marketing role?
I would say no, in most cases. Marketing is very different. There's 3 roles in this go-to-market thing we got going on here, right? A lot of people think there's 2. It's sales and marketing. I came up with this phrase. Maybe I heard it from somewhere called smarketing, where sales development is the actual mediator. They're the counselor to the to the 2 spouses fighting, right? They're the one in the middle of those 3 that needs to handle marketing and understand the marketing dynamics of go-to-market. Also needs to understand the sales side of things, but they are its own beast. And a lot of people are meshing it together where marketing is influencing the SDR team. Maybe they're even reporting to marketing. That's happening a lot these days. I think that's the wrong thing to do. And on the flip side, I think the VP of sales should not be managing an SDR team, right? So it is its own beast. And I think that they would have to have a lot of creativity and marketing skills to transfer over to that because it is very different.
Totally agree. Let's talk about one-to-ones. So what should a one-to-one with an SDR look like?
Yeah, I think they go in there ill-prepared. There needs to be a framework. There needs to be a template. You need to know what to expect in it. And I think you need to come very prepared on both sides to it. I think that the SDR needs to come prepared with calls that they want feedback and reviews on, right? Hey, here's what I'm having troubles with. Again, it's self-awareness. This is what I think I'm doing good. Here's a couple calls. How do I make it better? Do you agree? Am I on the right track? Here's the things that I'm thinking I need work on. I just didn't. These are ugly calls. I just didn't get the job done and I don't know why. What could I do differently? So bringing those pros and cons to the table, I think the SDR has to do it. And then the managers need to do the same thing. They need to do past, present, future. Hey, here's what we've seen in the past. This is reflecting over the last 60 to 90 days. Here's what we're noticing. Here's what we need to work on right now. This is our focus this month. And then future, here's where we want to be in next quarter. Here's where I'd like to see us accomplish and get to those things. And these are the things we'd like you to work on. So if you can come to the table with that past, present, future timeline, it just is so much more value. And you want to look forward to one-on-ones. I know a lot of SDRs, over the years, this is going to be annoying. And even the managers, I'm not looking forward to this one. Well, that should never be the case. And I think the preparation to the call is what justifies the success of it.
And how often do you think they should happen?
It really depends. It depends on what that planning and what that futuristic outlook looks like. When there's a situation where maybe a performance improvement plan is in place, maybe this is a newer person who's on the team, maybe we have a more sensitive scenario that we need to fix right away, then I would condense those to once a month. If it is something where, everything's humming, things are working well, we've been doing this for a while, we would be able to go maybe every other month. Anything farther than that, though, like these quarterly reviews or these 6-month reviews, I mean, you got to be much more involved in the day to day, and the one-on-ones should be part of that involvement than pushing it out any farther than that.
And that's interesting. I feel like, even though it won't happen because they get pushed and they get cancelled and rearranged, I feel like in my experience, a lot of one-to-ones, typically with SDRs as well, is weekly, which I feel like can be sometimes too frequent, particularly if you delay it a day and someone's like, well, we sort of had one on the Wednesday, it's now the Tuesday next week, it feels like we just had one. So you're more in favour of maybe not as often, but high quality, both prepare, both turn up with what you want to go through, ready to rock. There's expectation from the individual and there's expectation from the manager as well.
Yeah, and I just want to be super clear that we're talking about the same thing, because a one-on-one to me is really a inspection, preparation, planning session, and kind of like, here's what, kind of like a State of the Union type conversation. This doesn't mean you're only talking to your manager once a month, right? It means you're talking to them daily. You're doing your daily method of operation. You're communicating on the daily. But when it comes to like a State of the Union and a planning session, and where does my big picture look like in this company, on this project, in my role, that to me would be a little bit farther out than a weekly time, because you could blink your eyes and a week is gone. So I think you need more value to bring to those type of one-on-ones.
Let's talk about coaching. We've obviously touched on it quite a lot already, but I want to give you some specific examples. So Let's imagine an SDR leader is listening to this podcast and they want to coach their individuals on the following things. Give me some tips. Give me some ideas as to what you'd do. So the first one, frequent rejection, right? SDRs can get beaten up, they get rejection, they take it personally. It's all about developing that resilient mindset, not being connected to the outcome, not taking it personally. How can you coach an SDR to overcome that and move on?
Yeah, if someone's having a bad day because rejection is hitting them too hard, I actually do very different thing than most people would say. I would say, okay, listen, let's have lunch together. Right. And if it's virtual, if it's, in office, however you want to do it, but, I just sent you a $25 gift card to Grubhub or DoorDash or whatever it is. And we're going to hop on a Zoom and we're going to spend an hour just eating lunch and talking, and just literally friend them up and do nothing about business, and just sit there and just get it out of their mind. That would be my immediate reaction if someone is like, just having a really crappy day and just got punched in the face 5 times, right? And so that would be the first thing that I would do. And then in there, as a response or take from there, I would go into really getting their mindset right, because to your point, it is that resiliency that you need to have, what I call it, like mental calluses, right? And then just having them understand that it's okay and that it's not personal, and people are going to say weird, nasty, mean stuff, and it's their problem, not yours. Again, you got to put your psychiatrist hat on, right? And you just have to get them understanding that this is not on them. Once they capture that and get it, then you kind of have fun with it. It's like we kind of share war stories, right? So we actually are in a virtual room when we're all making calls. Everyone can actually see each other. So it's not just there for coaching and mentoring. It's also there for celebrating and high fives, but it's also there to kind of make fun and laugh at the crazy people that are saying things to us. And if you use it as a way like, oh my God, can you believe this person just said this to me? And laugh about it. It's the same exact thing that would turn your day into go upside down and be super negative. But if you approach it from, oh my God, I got a funny one on the line here. Listen to this. And approaching it that way, it allows that mental calluses to start forming, and then you don't give a shit about what people say to you.
What about imposter syndrome, right? Where SDRs, typically young, calling on senior leaders, decision makers, people that maybe got scary looking LinkedIn profiles. There can be a real imposter syndrome. Like they won't want to listen to me. They won't believe in me. I don't have the credibility, the gravitas. But here's the thing. They're the experts in what they're trying to talk to them about. But how do you help someone with imposter syndrome? How do you coach that?
Yeah, it's twofold. One, I always say borrow my confidence until you have your own, right? Like I sat in your seat. I was an SDR. And you just have to borrow our confidence until you have your own. it's not a fake it till you make it where it's, you're being, manipulating anything. What I'm saying is just, it's a level of, if he can do it, I can do it. Right. And bringing that into the conversation is super, super important. And then also, leveling it, the executives, like we see them on these pedestals, right? And we'll just bring them down. They're real people. I would actually bring them sometimes and have SDRs who are having a trouble with that. I'll bring them on our demos and our prospects for us, because we work only with CEOs and CROs. These are high level conversations with very high level executives. And I'll have them hop on a call, turn their camera off, or even keep their camera on and say, hey, this is one of our new trainees. And we'll do a call, and I'll get on that with our account executives. We call them growth directors. And they'll just see, which is a 30, 45-minute interaction with an executive, much more than a 2, 3 minute, 5-minute phone call. They're on camera and they realize these people are no different than me. These people are no different than, they have the same funny jokes, same problems, same issues. They're just normal. They've just been doing it longer and have a higher title. Like it's this, they're all just people. And, you'll see them in the grocery store. Like, it's like they feel like they're just different, and they're not. And so once they see that, that usually goes away.
Such a great idea to put SDRs in front of those senior decision makers and humanize them. It's funny, I did that just this week. It wasn't my idea though, I must admit. An SDR booked a face-to-face meeting for me, Joe did, and it was around the corner. Very nice to have a meeting around the corner. And he said to me, can I come? And I knew he was trying to ask me a question, because I heard him talking with another SDR, and I just said, just ask Mark, it'll be fine. Just ask him. It's no problem. And I was like, I just sort of sat quietly, and then Joe said, Mark, can I ask you a question? I was like, yeah, what is it? Almost like I hadn't heard anything. Could I come to that meeting? I was like, what a great idea. Absolutely. And just having him along, letting him see that this was just a normal person. It's funny, like see him in the grocery store, right? It's totally different, but I was in the grocery store with my son the other day, who's 6, and he saw his teacher, and it was just this, wow, what are you doing here? Should you not be at school? So yeah, it just sort of made me laugh. What about an SDR that is underperforming? How do you adjust your coaching style to help them improve?
I mean, we do believe in performance improvement plans. I think 99.9% of them are done incorrectly. And usually, essentially just a warning, you're going to get fired in 2 weeks. Like, that's not what it's designed to be. It's designed to be a plan on the management side to get their shit together to really help the SDR as much as humanly possible. And that's how we look at it. So it's about, what can we do as a leadership team to get this SDR on track to where we're expecting? And are we expecting impossibility from them, or are we expecting reasonable, realistic things from them? And is this a goal that can be accomplished? And if all of those things we all believe it, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, then we put a plan in place to do exactly that. And we make sure we hold up our end of the bargain. And it's hard to do on both sides, but I think that's the best way to attach it to anyone who is, struggling or, not hitting the things that we are expecting. Now, it is sometimes, if it is someone who has performed successfully for quite some time, and then all of a sudden we see a dip, then we feel like, okay, there's something that happened. And I always say something is broken, right? If I see like someone on a report and boom, 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 6 months in a row, and then 2 dips, I'm like, something's broken. We have to figure out what's broken. And we triage that as much as humanly possible. And I will tell you, most of the time, it has nothing to do with us, the product, the service, the KPIs, the tools, the data. It's something is happening in their personal life, or something is happening in just their attitude, and something shifted and it's bringing it down. And so we try to figure that out.
Really interesting when you say 99.9% of performance improvement plans, or PIPs as they're known, aren't done correctly. What's your pass rate? If you put 100 SDRs on a PIP plan, how many pass their PIPs with Alleyoop?
It's like 60-40. It actually is in our favor, but it's not 100%, and it's definitely not 10%. So it's about 60-40 where it works out. Again, we usually find out that something was broken. We figured it out and we fixed it. It sometimes could be a data issue. It could be, something that did happen in just the campaign side of things, and we figure that out. And usually we get it back on track. But sometimes people just never recover, or it's just timing is bad, and situationally it just is not a fit, and that's okay too. Sales is hard. What we do is hard. It's not for everybody. If it was for everyone would be doing it. If it can't work, it doesn't work. At least we know, and they know that we did everything we possibly can mutually to figure it out, and we move on. I've had a lot of people leave us and come back because maybe you learned, something new, and maybe they had a job that taught them some things, and they came back and had tremendous success and failed a PIP years ago. So it's interesting how things change.
That's amazing. It's not often at all that you hear people fail in a company or move on and then come back. That is interesting. How do you change how you interview that person based on that? Like, obviously they failed before.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out what happened and what changed, right? Sometimes they were just young and naive. Sometimes, they weren't ready to make a shift. Maybe their why and desire. They had 2 kids and now they're married, and things are different. Maybe they, found a great mentor and they taught them some things and they were ready to be coached, and now they're ready to do it because they're just more prepared. Yeah, I think those are all the right reasons. It happened with me. I was the number 2 in the company, and I left because I wanted to go run software companies and SaaS companies and, have more education, career education, and, managing a software team and managing an accounting department. I didn't do those things. And then, my founder, who wanted to, retire, asked me to come back. And a lot to do with it was because of what I learned at the company that I was at that got him excited to have me come back to run this company. So yeah, I guess I'm a product of that.
I guess so. Let's talk about some of the challenges of running SDR teams. I mean, what do you find to be the most difficult part of managing an SDR team?
Everyone's different. I mean, it's like herding cats, right? And that's okay. And that's what makes it fun. But like literally everyone is different. With technology, it's the same. It's just a product, and every product is the same. The clients aren't. So look at it from that perspective, right? So everyone is uniquely different, and everyone has to be trained and coached and mentored differently. Now there are basics and fundamentals around it, and there are similarities for sure. And you do have to approach it, I would say, the same, but the way you approach it is understanding that everyone's different, and that's a part of it. So I think that would be the most difficult part to do, especially at scale like we have.
And that's what's interesting, right? One of the things that I was going to ask you was, when everyone does the same role, it's really easy to fall into the trap of give everyone the same training. But you're saying everyone's different. Everyone's got different needs. And that's where it's very clear that you create those tailored coaching plans and pathways for everyone based on their needs. In terms of the SDR role itself, obviously it can be very difficult to retain SDRs, right? A lot of them want to move up or go to different organizations that will give them that opportunity. Obviously, a key part of your business has to be retention. And whilst you've got great stories of people moving on and love to understand more about that, but obviously a big part, you want to retain your best SDRs. How do you try to do that? What is it that you do to keep people wanting to stay in their role as an SDR?
We provide a culture that I think is second to none. And it really is, what I've been told, the reason why people stay by my team. And at the end of the day, though, we applaud and support and recognize and, celebrate when people do leave. And I think ironically, that's actually a big reason why people stay. And I know it sounds like counterintuitive, but the reality is that we are okay with people leaving. Actually, it's in all of our agreements. Our clients can hire our reps at any point within the agreement if they choose to do that. And many teams are built internally for that exact reason, because if you think about it, they're going to leave anyway. And so if the SDR wants to grow in their career, they're going to leave anyway. We know that. The clients are going to want to build a team and run this eventually themselves one day, usually is what they're looking to do long term. And if we can, one, generate fun money from that, and at the same time facilitate that transaction in a way that is best for the rep and best for the client, that client's going to come back to us and be happy customer long term anyway. So that's why we do it. But secondly, I think our SDRs stay. We have like a 3.5-year retention rate, which is 5x the industry averages. And so the reality is because they know that they have an opportunity maybe to leave one day, or we provide a lot of advancement for the people. We really want all of the people, including some of our marketers, to be SDRs prior to. Our head of recruitment was an SDR. Our COO was an SDR. Our one of our data and sales technology masters was an SDR. I was an SDR. So if you think about it, the SDR role lives in almost every division of our company. And so we do provide people an opportunity to be retained because they see growth here.
What a great answer. What a great culture, and it sounds like you've got there. We're talking about the history there in terms of lots of people have been SDRs in the past. Let's look to the future. Lots of noise can easily be found, and it can sound compelling when it comes from certain people and certain talks around the SDR role going away. I don't believe it will go away entirely ever. I believe there'll always be that need, but I can see teams becoming smaller and leaner. But that's my take. No one's interested in that. We want to hear yours, Gabe. What do you believe to be the future of the SDR role?
Yeah, I don't see it going away, but I do see it being significantly elevated. Right? Like I don't see, the SDR role being the only way to get into a company and only being for junior people. Someone challenged me when I did a post on that on LinkedIn a few weeks ago. And like, well, if that's the case, how do people what's their first job? I'm like, well, how about customer service? How about tier one support? How about, being able to handle, inbound calls or inbound SDRs? Like those are all great ways to get your chops and your training and your abilities and your confidence up. But from a B2B high ticket item with large ACV and a complex product, to give that to an AI SDR, we've seen recently that that's a bad idea. That's like a dumpster fire right now. No offense to those who are out there. But on the other side, I also don't see just a junior SDR being the way we figure this thing out, right? We want elevation. We want best in class tools. We want higher business acumen, but we also don't want them doing the demo. Right? Prospecting is its own function, no differently how you would treat a call when you're an account executive doing prospecting. We still want that to be its own function because we don't see AEs spending 80% of their time prospecting. We want them selling. And no matter what's been happening in the world with technology, that hasn't changed. And I don't see it replacing the SDR function, but I do see the SDR function becoming significantly more advanced, to answer your question.
And speaking of advancements, do your SDR team use AI in their roles today? And if so, how?
We do. And I want to be super careful because AI, like the word marketing, is so vast and broad, right? What does that actually mean, marketing? I mean, there's about 1,000 different subcategories. And so say same thing with AI. We use technology where we are using parallel dialers right now that involve AI to have higher connection rate, better ways of communicating and connecting with people at the right time, scoring leads, scoring data, scoring contacts and companies using AI, using research AI tools to determine, who the right ICP is, what the right fit is, intent signals using AI. Obviously, writing emails and playbooks and scripts and are all started with the use of AI, and then of course humanized and edited down and narrowed down with humans. So those are really where AI is touching our company right now.
Give us a piece of technology that you're using for the SDR team that you suspect other SDR leaders might not know about or might not be using yet that they should.
Yeah, I mean, well, we do 7 million calls last year as a company. And so I think we've done 11 million emails and calls collectively as a company for all of our campaigns combined. We'll eclipse that this year. A lot of technology right now is out there for phone dialers. And there's a distinct difference, and many people don't understand it. There's click to dial, which they call like a preview dial. So you can actually preview the prospect, do a lot of research, and then click the number and then dial. And then there's power dialers, which allows you to make phone call and then you wait, and then you make another phone call and then you wait. And then there's parallel dialers, which allows for multiple calls to be happening in a very short period of time. And you can turn that up or down. And that allows you to do a significant of volume at scale. So I think the dialer technology, and I know you're associated with some, you just guys did a great report with one, I think is a million times better than it was when I was making cold calls, literally with a phone you actually had to pick up and hold next to your ear that had a wire attached to it. I sound like an old dude now, but at the end of the day, dialing technologies are really advanced. And I think a lot of people need to spend time on what's the best one for them.
Let's imagine a sales leader is starting to build out an SDR team. Perhaps they've got a few already, had some success, but they want to start to build it out and scale it. Obviously, that's what you've done. You've built and scaled SDR teams. What's one piece of advice you'd give to that person that's about to do that?
So I just want to be super clear. When you say a sales leader, are you saying like a founder, like an owner, CEO coming to the table and building out their first sales team?
I was more thinking of like a sales leader that's got an SDR team already.
Okay.
But it's about to go from, let's say, 3-4 SDRs to 15 or 20. They're about to scale that team. And that's where you can start to lose touch with people. You don't get as much FaceTime, etc. And that's kind of the question, I suppose. So, yeah, we'll edit this out so it's a cleaner question. But the question really is, if you're about to take your SDR team and scale it, what's one piece of advice would you give to that sales leader?
Yeah, if you're taking your SDR team from 2 to 3 to 10 to 15, that's really that tipping point we like to say. Going from that single digit number to that double digit number is really where you start to have to invest in enablement technology tools. You have to really have a strong data partner. And I don't just mean getting good data. I mean sending back bad data to that data partner. They enrich it and send it back to you. Right? Like that, a collaborative data partner is required if you're at that double digit number. You have to have great, insights and seeing what the team is doing and having a workforce management platform or person, not to micromanage, but to see where red flags are happening, because you can't be everywhere all at once. And that will give you opportunities that are hitting your inbox or hitting you and triggering events to you. So they're being brought up without having you to go look for them. And then you have to have really, really good team leads or managers who maybe are player coaches who know the game and have, hopefully grown through your company and know the product really, really well, and are there as your first line of defense when it comes to making sure that your SDRs are on the right track. I would say those three things. There's a lot more, but those three things would be the first thing you want to make sure you have in check and get those plates spinning, if you will, if you want to go from 3 and add 10 more reps to your org.
Excellent advice, Gabe. We are almost at the very end. First of all, I want to just thank you, Gabe, for your time and sharing your expertise and wisdom today. I don't anticipate I'll speak to someone that's recruited as many SDRs as you, let alone sales professionals, on this podcast. So I think so much has been shared here, and I really want to appreciate that. I'm guessing people can find you on LinkedIn, so they can connect with you there. But I've had one question to end this interview in my mind from about 10 minutes in. Give us the pitch for Alleyoop.
When I call somebody, I'm very direct, and I would say, Mark, this is Gabe. You and I have never spoken before, but it was asked of me by my executive team to reach out to you specifically before, I ask you for a meeting here. Would you be okay if I ask you a few questions to see if this is relevant? And that would be my first way of opening up the call. And then I punch them in the face with 3 to 4 bullet points that resonate with whatever personality type I'm talking to. So we call them sharks, whales, dolphin, urchins, right? So they're different personality types. So I'll hit them with a message that it hopefully hits you based on your personality type. So I would say, this is for the ones who are like those CEOs and, best in class type A personalities. I would say, listen, we are one of the leaders in sales development. We have orchestrated, architected, and built and managed SDR teams for companies like Peloton, ZoomInfo, and Adobe, all the way down to 2 guys making $100,000 from Mark Cuban on Shark Tank. And the reason for what we do is because we've been able to help scale up the SDR organizations to, case in point, drive more qualified leads to you and your sellers, so they can spend time doing what you hired them to do, which is close new business. I'm assuming, Mark, that you are in charge of overseeing ways to evaluate getting a lift in lead generation and better leads for your team. Is that correct? And that would be my pitch. So if I open it up that way, say that with value and confidence, and then assume the question that you're in charge of it, at that point, I pretty much have you ready to go for an uppercut, which is asking for the meeting.
I love it. Excellent pitch. You would have passed Gabe's gauntlet, I'm sure. Here's something that's going to happen. And when it does, you must give me a call. In the future, an SDR is going to repeat that to you word for word because they've watched this podcast, and you're going to be in a tricky spot then, and have to get them to try again with their own phrasing. But Gabe,
I think we'll just have to send them an offer letter, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But Gabe, I've really enjoyed our time together, and I want to just say again, thank you. And everyone can go and find you on LinkedIn and follow you. And as I say, I think one of the best business names we've ever heard of in Alleyoop. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mark.